Happy Australia Day, mate. It's Australia Day here today in Australia, and happy Australia Day to you all. So being Australia Day theme, I've basically pulled out 8 albums from my collection, and very random. When I saw one, I just pulled them out, and I only made sure that it was a record I have not shown in a long time, or at all. So here we go in random order. I've almost forgotten what I got here. Skyhooks, Living in the 70s. So Skyhooks, obviously a 70s Australian band, basically made their mark probably through the program Countdown with Molly Meldrum, which I've spoken about before on this channel. Unfortunately, the lead singer Shirley died in, I think it was a helicopter crash some time ago now. And yeah, any kids who the 70s was part of your lifestyle, you definitely know Skyhooks and Living in the 70s. For me, probably I mean, there's a lot of big radio hits on here. Living in the 70s is a big one. Ball and Calling, and Horror Movie. Horror Movie certainly a big one. So Skyhooks. Paul Kelly and the Colored Girls, Under the Sun. This came out in 87 or 86. It had the big classic song To Her Door, which is it's played a lot on Australia Day. Basically about a man separating from his wife and issues with that, and travelling to go back, that sort of thing. But it's a song I used to like playing guitar when I was first playing it. I remember downstairs in one of our old Queenslander houses we used to live in. Queenslanders being veranda type base housing, weatherboard, open windows, no fly screens. They're basically made to be livable in hot weather. We played. My brother took his keyboard downstairs, and I brought my acoustic guitar, and we played some Paul Kelly. For me, Paul Kelly is true blue Australian, from Melbourne. Basically living, he did it hard for a long time, Paul Kelly, trying to make it in the music business. Basically eating 2-minute noodles and sleeping wherever he could type of thing. But he's an incredible writer, probably one of the best in this country. INXS, Listen Like Thieves, the year, I'm not sure, maybe 85, something like that, which I'm pretty sure is right. This was the album before the famous Kick album that was huge in the States. So for me, this album to me more defines INXS than even Kick and anything else, because they made it big in Australia with this album, and the album before it was called The Swing. So this one has What You Need, Listen Like Thieves, Shine Like It Does, Same Direction. So there's about 4 or 5 radio hits, songs lifted from this album in Australia. And of course, there's the band there, the late, great Michael Hutchence. This one, in exception to my rule, I did show this not too long ago. And this album has really increased in value a lot, even more since I last spoke. I think the average price is now over $100 for this original Australian pressing. Debatable. Are they an Australian band? That was a big thing that a lot of people talk about, is are they an Australian band? They basically all met at like a camp for people coming in from Europe and England into Australia, into Sydney, before they get processed and moved on. And it was at those camps that they met. And of course, Harry Vander, and as part of that group, went on to fantastic, great things in Australia. So for me, they formed in Australia. They consider themselves Australian. Went on to do a lot of fantastic things in the Australian music industry and the world. So definitely Aussie. What do you think? Carl Chisel, East. This would be, can't see the year, but it'd be early 80s. And of course, Jimmy Barnes. There's the boys there. And Ian Moss, of course, I've seen live as a solo artist. Fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And he's got a new album of new material coming out this year, so I'm looking forward to that. And there's Barnesy after a big night. I'd say this was not put on. I'd say this was a fair dinkum real photograph of Jimmy Barnes. So I've talked about them a lot. Say no more, but East is one of their finest. To the world, Billy Birmingham produced and did all the voices for this. It's Wide World of Sports. Look, and how Aussie is this? Can of VB there. Just so you non-Australians realise, VB, while quite synonymous as an Australian drink, has really been known to become an absolute rubbish beer. Most people say pour it down the sink. Although it might be better than a lot of other beers in different countries, the craft beer industry has really taken off. So still synonymous with, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s Australian. So that's why that's there. So basically, Billy Birmingham is famous for doing copying the commentary voices of the Australian cricket summer. So there's a commentary team that very famous in Australia, particularly in the 80s, that commentated cricket on TV. And this guy here, Billy, basically made fun of them and, you know, threw in a lot of swear words and so forth. Made fun of Indian names, things like that. So it's just classic Aussie fun. Very funny. I'll make this the last one. This video, VDCDC Fly on the Wall. Fly on the Wall is my first AC/DC album I ever listened to. Here they are here. Still breaks my heart that, you know, they're not going to be playing again, and what's happened this year to the Youngs, of course, that we all know. So Fly on the Wall, important to me for my introduction to AC/DC. Of course, I've got pretty much most of their collection, heard all the albums time and time again, but this is the first one for me. So there you go, just a few Aussie records for you to look at. Do you have any of those? Which one would you like to have? And what are you doing for Australia Day? I'm going to put a photo up here. You'll see Fat City Vinyl Doug. I'm sure Doug won't mind me doing this, but this made me laugh and getting to the spirit of things with Australia Day. So thanks, Doug, and g'day, mate, to you. Cheers out, everyone.